Welcome to Stoic Origin. You do not stumble into becoming someone new. You execute the old you, quietly, deliberately when nobody is watching. That is the part nobody posts. The late nights when your excuses sound hollow. The mornings when comfort begs you to stay small. Somewhere between those two moments a choice waits. And it is brutal. This is not another motivational pep talk. This is a warning shot. The life you want is blocked by the person you have been pretending to be. And today, we are tearing that person apart. Here is the truth. Stoic philosophers buried inside dusty books. Growth is not loud. It is isolating. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And right now your thoughts are stained by routines that feel safe but rot your future. You know it. You feel it when the room goes quiet. What if the loneliness you fear is actually the doorway you have been avoiding? Every comeback story starts with a disappearing act. The hero leaves the village. The boxer locks himself in a cold gym. The thinker retreats from the crowd. That is not romance. It is strategy. Stoicism calls this voluntary hardship, choosing discomfort before life forces it on you. And here is the tension you cannot escape. You cannot become powerful in the same environment that trained you to be weak. Maybe your friends are not evil. Maybe your job is not hell. But look closer. Who are you when nobody expects anything from you? Who are you when there is no applause, no distraction, no excuse? That version of you is the only one that matters, and most people never meet him. You feel the itch to change, then immediately negotiate with it. After the holidays, when things slow down, you turn your potential into a lie-away plan. That is how the old you survives. It does not attack you, it seduces you. In a moment I will give you a test so simple, it will make you uncomfortable, and if you fail it, nothing else in this video will work. First, understand what you are actually fighting. You are not fighting bad luck. You are not fighting other people. You are fighting an identity. The stories you tell yourself about who you are and what you deserve. Epictetus said that people are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. That means your biggest enemy lies between your ears, and he is wearing your face. Think about the last time you promised yourself you would change. You meant it. Your chest felt tight. Your eyes got a little wet. You saw a better future. Then life happened. Someone texted. A show autoplayed. The feeling faded. That is not weakness. That is a system working perfectly to keep you exactly where you are. Here is the test. Go 1 full hour today with no music, no phone, no talking, no distraction, just you and your thoughts. Most people would rather lift heavy iron than lift that silence. When you do this, something specific will surface and it will feel ugly, but it is the key to everything that follows. Stoics believe that solitude is not punishment. It is surgery. You cut away illusions, you see patterns, you notice that your mind repeats the same excuses on a loop. You are tired, you deserve a break, you cannot change your nature. Each sentence sounds harmless. Together they build a cage. Picture your life as a house with a cracked foundation. You keep repainting the walls, new goals, new playlists, new affirmations, but the floor still sinks. The old you is that foundation, and rebuilding it while you are still living on it is impossible. This part hurts, so stay with me. You do not need more information. You need subtraction, fewer voices, fewer commitments, fewer dopamine hits. The discipline of elimination is the first violent act against your former self. In the next chapter, I will show you the exact moment the old you fights back hardest, and how Stoic masters trained themselves to win that battle every single time. Most people think change arrives with fireworks, but it actually creeps in like a thief, stealing your excuses while daring you to finally take responsibility for every choice you make today. The moment you decide to change, the old you does not scream. It whispers. It tells you that you deserve rest, that you have been through enough, that tomorrow is a better battlefield. That whisper is not kindness. It is sabotage dressed as mercy, and Stoic teachers warned about it centuries ago. Seneca wrote that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. You waste it in the space between intention and action. You wake up fired up, then scroll. You plan a hard conversation, then avoid it. You swear you will train your body, then bargain with the couch. Each small surrender trains your nervous system to distrust your own words. Here is the turning point most people miss. The old identity is not destroyed by motivation. It is destroyed by pattern interruption. You do something small immediately and without negotiation. You stand up when you want to sit. You speak when you want to hide. You close the app when you crave the hit. The body moves first, the mind catches up later. Imagine a man trying to quit smoking while keeping a pack in his jacket. He claims he is serious, but every stressful moment tests his resolve. Now imagine he throws the pack in the trash and walks away. That is subtraction. That is Stoicism in action. You remove the trigger before it removes your future. Most viewers think the hard part is starting. It is not. The hard part is the first time you break your own rule. You skip the workout once. You stay up late once. You lie to yourself once. Suddenly the standard is negotiable. And once a standard is negotiable, it is no longer a standard. It is a suggestion. The Stoics trained with negative visualization, picturing failure in detail so they could feel its weight before it arrived. Try it now. Picture yourself 1 year from today if nothing changes. Same room, same routines, same frustrations. Friends moving forward while you are stuck explaining why you are still here. Sit with that image until it burns. Now pivot. Picture the version of you who said no to comfort every day for a month. Same face, different eyes. The walk is steadier. The voice does not apologize. That person exists. He is not created by talent. He is created by repetition. There is a trap hiding here. You might think you need to cut everyone off, quit your job, move to a cabin in the woods. That is drama. Stoicism is not about escape. It is about sovereignty. You can be surrounded by people and still be mentally alone. Alone enough to hear your standards. The next time you feel the pull to revert, ask one question that has no emotional wiggle room. What would the disciplined version of me do in the next 5 minutes? Not later, not Sunday, in the next 5 minutes. Then do exactly that, even if your stomach tightens. People romanticize isolation as a vacation. It is not. It is an audit. You see how scattered your attention is. You realize how much of your personality is borrowed from whoever is loudest in the room. You notice that when nobody is watching, your ambition fades. That is not shameful. That is information. Epictetus said that no man is free who is not master of himself. Freedom is not money or travel. It is the ability to issue a command to your own mind and have it obey. Every time you follow through on a tiny promise, you tighten that bond. Here is a practical ritual. Choose one daily act that is slightly uncomfortable and non-negotiable. A cold shower, a silent walk, a page of hard reading. Mark it on a calendar. Miss it once and you restart the count. Not because you are punishing yourself, but because you are training your brain to respect agreements. There will be days when nothing seems to change. That is the invisible phase. Roots are growing, tendons are thickening, neural pathways are rewiring. You cannot feel it yet, but future you is being assembled quietly in the dark. One more thing before we move on. Stop telling people what you are about to do. The crowd gives you a false sense of completion. Let results announce you. Let silence protect you. That secrecy is not arrogance. It is strategy. Stay present now because the work ahead demands your courage. You think the danger is slipping back into old habits, but the real danger is something quieter. It is the moment you start believing you have already changed. That belief is a sedative. It slows your edge and invites comfort back into the room. Stoicism warns against this with brutal clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Translation for your life right now. Every obstacle you face is not a detour, it is the training ground. When boredom hits, you are not blocked, you are being tested. Picture this. You are 3 weeks into your rebuild. You have been waking early. You have been cutting noise. You feel stronger. Then one morning you wake up flat. No fire, no urgency, just a heavy gray mood. This is the checkpoint. Most people think something is wrong here. They think motivation left. What really happened is that novelty expired and discipline is about to be revealed. This is where solitude sharpens into something useful. When you are alone long enough, you stop performing. You cannot fake it for the mirror. You see the truth of your follow-through. You notice how quickly you reach for distraction when you feel nothing. That numbness is not failure. It is the raw material of mastery. Here is a hard reframe. Emotion is not the fuel. Emotion is the exhaust. Action is the engine. You move first, then feeling follows. The old you waits to feel ready. The rebuilt you moves while empty. Seneca trained himself to do what he least wanted each day, not heroic acts, small frictions, writing when tired, standing when he wanted to recline. These choices looked insignificant, but they built a reflex. Over time, the reflex replaced the craving for ease. You must start collecting proof, not inspiration proof. Keep a simple log, 1 sentence a day. What promise did I keep today? That record becomes a weapon. On weak mornings, you do not argue with your mood. You read your own receipts. There will be social friction now. Friends notice the shift. You leave earlier, you drink less, you talk about different things. Some people will encourage you, others will joke. Pay attention to who needs you to stay small so they do not have to feel uncomfortable about themselves. That is not your problem, but it is your data. The Stoics believed that attachment is the root of disturbance. You are attached not just to people, but to versions of yourself that earn easy approval. The funny one, the laid-back one, the one who never makes waves. Those masks are expensive. They cost you momentum. Try this experiment. For 1 full day, refuse to explain yourself. No justifications, no long stories. You choose, you act, you move on. Notice how often your mouth wants to protect your image. That impulse is the old identity begging for oxygen. As the days stack, another illusion will surface. You will think you deserve a reward. You will hear the phrase, "I have been so good lately." That is the moment the rebuild is most fragile. The reward you want is not a break, it is continuity. Keep the chain alive. Let me tell you a short story. There was a man who trained every morning before dawn in a forgotten warehouse. No audience, no music, just iron and breath. Someone asked him why he never took days off. He said, "Because I do not want to meet the man I would become if I did." That is the lens. You are not chasing a fantasy. You are running from a warning. Every night before sleep, perform a Stoic review. Ask 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I betray my standards? What will I correct tomorrow? Then close your eyes. No phone, no scrolling. Let your mind finish the work you started. The silence will deepen now. The world will feel slightly farther away. That is not depression. That is detachment. You are no longer being dragged by every impulse. You are standing apart from them. And here is the unsettling truth. The more you change, the harder it becomes to go back. Old pleasures feel thin. Old conversations feel repetitive. You realize that comfort was never that comfortable. It was just familiar. In the next phase, you will face the most dangerous emotion of all, the one that has ended more transformations than laziness ever could. The emotion that destroys more rebuilds than laziness is pride. Not the loud kind that brags, but the quiet kind that relaxes. You start thinking you have earned ease. You start protecting your streak instead of sharpening your blade. Stoicism treats pride as a leak in the hull, invisible at first, catastrophic later. Picture this phase. You have been disciplined for weeks. People notice. Compliments land. You begin to identify as the disciplined one. That identity feels good and the mind wants to preserve it. But the moment you cling to an image, you stop interrogating your behavior. You become a curator of appearances instead of a practitioner of standards. Marcus Aurelius warned himself not to be Caesarized by success, not to become intoxicated by his own status. For you, the status might be smaller. The friend who says you are inspiring. The mirror that looks a little different. The inner voice that says you have arrived. That voice is the start of decay. Here is the discipline shift required now. Replace pride with process obsession. You do not admire who you are becoming. You examine what you did today. You stop celebrating streaks and start auditing inputs. Sleep, movement, reading, solitude. These are not habits, they are levers. When pride creeps in, you start telling yourself stories. I am different now. I have willpower. I do not need the guardrails. The Stoics dismantled this with one idea. Memento mori. Remember you will die, not in a morbid way, but as a calibration. Death makes every shortcut look childish. Try this. The next time you feel the urge to coast, visualize your funeral, not the speeches, but the empty chair where you should have been for someone you love. the opportunity you delayed until it expired, the potential that never materialized. Let that weight land. Then stand up. Another hidden threat emerges here: comparison. You will look sideways and measure your progress against others. Faster, slower, more dramatic, more public. This is a trap. The rebuild is not a race. It is an excavation. You are digging through layers of your own history. No one else can do that for you. As your solitude deepens, you may notice a strange sadness. The excitement of beginning is gone, and the destination is still distant. This is the desert. The Stoics would call it endurance training for the soul. You do not get applause here, you get grit. There is a simple anchor: morning stillness. Before the world intrudes, sit in silence for 5 minutes. No goal, no plan, just presence. This resets your orientation from reaction to intention. It is where you choose your character for the day. You will also need to practice strategic withdrawal. That means stepping away from people or environments that blur your standards, not forever, just until your new baseline hardens. This is not rejection. It is construction zoning. Here is a practical framework. For 30 days, adopt one role: the apprentice. You assume you know nothing about discipline, focus, or courage. You ask, what would a beginner do today? Beginners are humble. They show up. They practice. They do not posture. Your old identity will attempt a final maneuver here. It will offer you a compromise life. Not the chaos of before, but not the excellence you are capable of. A balanced mediocrity, just enough effort to feel superior, just enough comfort to avoid pain. This is the most seductive prison. Seneca wrote that luxury weakens the mind. That is not about wealth. It is about convenience. You remove too much friction and your resolve atrophies. You need resistance the way muscles need load. So you introduce controlled difficulty. Walk when you could drive. Choose the heavier option. These are not punishments. They are rehearsals for the day. Life demands more than you planned. Let me be clear. You will not feel heroic doing this. You will feel ordinary. That is the sign it is working. You are becoming someone who does not need drama to stay committed. At night, when the room is dark and the phone is away, you may feel a pressure behind your eyes, a mix of grief and resolve. Grief for who you were, resolve for who you are refusing to become again. In the next chapter, you will confront the one force that no routine can defeat on its own, the force that waits patiently for the moment you are alone with your doubts. There is a force more patient than laziness and more persuasive than pride. It is doubt, not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet erosion that questions whether any of this is worth it. You do not hear doubt as a voice. You feel it as heaviness, as the sense that you are walking uphill with no summit in sight. Stoicism never promised certainty. It promised agency in uncertainty. Epictetus taught that you control your judgments, not outcomes. The distinction becomes life or death in this phase, because the results you crave are still invisible. Picture yourself months into this rebuild. Your routine is solid, your solitude is real, but the outer world has not changed much. Same paycheck, same stress, same problems. This is when doubt leans in and says, what if this is pointless? Here is the antidote. You stop measuring transformation by external milestones. You start measuring by internal latency. How fast do you recover when you fall? How quickly do you notice a lie you tell yourself? How often do you act before the mood arrives? These are quiet metrics, but they are the real scoreboard. Another layer of doubt appears in relationships. People who knew you before will test the boundaries. They will bring up old stories, old jokes, old triggers, not always maliciously. Sometimes they are just anchoring you to a memory that no longer fits. You will feel a tug to step back into that character because it is easy and familiar. Resist gently but firmly. You do not announce your evolution, you demonstrate it. Shorter replies, cleaner decisions, calm exits. Over time, the room rearranges itself around your new posture. Stoic practice includes premeditatio malorum, rehearsing adversity before it arrives. Do that now. Imagine a week where everything goes wrong. You oversleep, you miss a deadline, you get criticized, the routine fractures. What do? The answer is not to start over next Monday. The answer is to restart in the next 10 minutes. Doubt hates immediacy. It thrives on postponement, so your weapon is compression. You shrink the gap between intention and action until doubt has no air. Here is a rule that ends many inner debates. Never break 2 promises in a row. You miss a day, you show up the next. No drama, no guilt spiral, just correction. This keeps the identity intact even when the execution wobbles. Another hidden drain is nostalgia. You remember the chaos of your old life with selective editing. The late nights seem fun. The reckless choices seem free, but you forget the anxiety, the shame, the dull mornings. The mind is a dishonest historian when it wants comfort. Write down exactly why you started, not a quote, not a vague goal. The raw reason. The moment you realized you could not continue as you were. Keep it where you can see it when doubt whispers. As solitude stretches on, you may feel disconnected from the world. Friends drift, invitations fade. This is the cost of reinvention. You are between identities. The old one is too small. The new one is not fully built. That limbo is uncomfortable, but it is sacred. In that space, Stoic texts become less like advice and more like mirrors. You see that people 2,000 years ago fought the same battles in different clothes. Distraction, ego, fear. They survived without your modern conveniences. That perspective is not meant to shame you. It is meant to fortify you. Here is a practice for the nights when doubt is loud. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Sit in a chair with your feet flat and your back straight. Ask one question silently. What am I avoiding right now? Do not answer immediately. Let the mind circle. The truth will surface. It always does. When it does, do not negotiate with it. Write it down. Then decide the smallest possible action that moves you toward it. Send the email. Schedule the appointment. Set out the shoes. End the conversation. The rebuild advances in inches, not leaps. You will notice a shift around this time. Your inner dialogue becomes less dramatic, fewer ultimatums, more instructions. Instead of "I cannot do this anymore," you say, "I will do this at 6. That is Stoic maturity. You replace emotion with order. The more you act this way, the less you need motivation. The system carries you. That is freedom. But there is one more trial coming. It arrives when you least expect it, disguised as something you think you want more than anything. The trial that ends many transformations arrives wearing a friendly face. Opportunity. You finally start getting what you wanted. More attention, more responsibility, more access. And suddenly the solitude that built you feels optional. This is where people trade depth for display. Stoicism warns that success is a louder distraction than failure. When life is hard, discipline feels necessary. When life improves, discipline feels inconvenient. You start saying yes more than no. Your calendar fills. Your evenings vanish. You are busy again, and you call it progress. But look closer. Are you still meeting yourself in silence? Are you still choosing friction when no one is watching? Or are you performing your new identity for an audience? Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he wrote his private thoughts in a notebook no one else was meant to read. That was not vanity. That was insulation. Power without privacy erodes character. You will face this in your own way. Maybe your boss notices your work ethic. Maybe your friends invite you back into old circles. Maybe social media finally starts paying attention. Each invitation feels like validation. Each one also steals a small piece of the solitude that made you dangerous in the first place. Here is the recalibration. You do not reject opportunity, you ration it. You decide in advance what remains sacred, the morning ritual, the evening review, the weekly withdrawal. These are not flexible, they are structural beams. Everything else fits around them or not at all. Another subtle shift happens here. You stop thinking of yourself as rebuilding and start thinking of yourself as maintaining. Maintenance sounds boring, but it is the longest phase of mastery. It is the daily refusal to drift. Drift is comfortable. You skip a morning, then 2. You check messages before breathing. You justify it with productivity. Soon you are busy and brittle. Stoicism calls this being scattered. Your attention becomes a resource others spend for you. Reclaim it with a rule. No inputs before outputs. You produce before you consume. Write before you scroll. Move before you check. Decide before you ask. This keeps your center of gravity inside yourself. There is also a temptation to broadcast your discipline as a brand. You post the routines, the quotes, the behind-the-scenes grind. This is not always wrong, but notice the internal shift. Are you doing the work because it matters or because it will be seen? The moment the camera becomes the reason, the work loses its teeth. A useful Stoic lens here is control. What is up to you? Your schedule, your standards, your reactions. What is not? Other people's praise, their understanding, their pace. The rebuild stays clean only when you stay on your side of that line. You might feel pressure to relax your edges. People will say you are too intense, too serious, too different. Smile, they say. Live a little. They mean well, but they are asking you to dilute something they do not yet understand. You do not argue, you nod. You keep your commitments to yourself. Over time, your consistency becomes less threatening and more instructive. This is also the season to deepen your philosophy. You are no longer using Stoicism as a rescue rope. You are using it as architecture. You read slower. You revisit the same passages. You notice how your reactions have changed. Things that once derailed you now register as information. One night you will realize that you are no longer fighting yourself as much. The resistance is quieter. The excuses are weaker. That is not because life is easier. It is because your standards are now automatic. But do not mistake that calm for immunity. Complacency waits for comfort. The moment you think you are beyond relapse is the moment you stop guarding the gates. So you keep one practice from the early days, periodic austerity, a day of minimal food, a weekend without screens, a week of early mornings, not as punishment, but as proof. Proof that you can still choose the hard road when the easy one is available. The old you is not dead, he is dormant. He waits for fatigue, for celebration, for a reason to re-enter. Your job is not to hate him. Your job is to outgrow him daily, and now you are ready for the final shift. Not the destruction of who you were, but the integration of who you are becoming, so that the rebuild does not collapse the moment life hits you sideways. There is a quiet moment that arrives after the struggle fades, when you realize you are no longer at war with yourself. The rebuild is no longer a project, it is your posture. You wake up, and your first thought is not about changing your life, it is about living it. This is integration. The phase where discipline becomes identity, but not the brittle kind that needs applause, the kind that functions even when nobody notices. Stoicism does not ask you to become extraordinary. It asks you to become reliable. You still face pressure, deadlines pile up, people disappoint you, plans fall apart. The difference now is not that these things stop happening. It is that they no longer own your inner weather. You respond instead of react. You adjust instead of collapse. Marcus Aurelius described the soul as a fortress that cannot be breached unless you open the gates yourself. That is the standard you carry now. You cannot control the storm, but you control the shutters. Here is what most people misunderstand. Destroying the old you was never about self-hatred. It was about honesty. You did not attack your past, you retired it. You thanked it for surviving. Then you relieved it of command. Integration also means forgiveness. You forgive the versions of yourself that did not know what you know now. You stop replaying old scenes with new contempt. That emotional energy is better invested in precision. At this stage, your rituals look simple from the outside. Wake, move, think, act, review, sleep. That is the loop. Inside that loop is freedom. You do not chase motivation, you generate momentum. People will ask what changed. You will struggle to answer because nothing dramatic happened in a single moment. You just stop negotiating with your standards. You stop betraying small promises. You stop waiting for feelings to give you permission. This is the paradox. The more you detach from outcome, the more effective you become. The more you release the need to be seen, the more visible your results are. You also learn to hold solitude differently. It is no longer an escape from the world. It is a return to center, a place to calibrate before you step back into noise. You can be alone without being lonely, and with others without being lost. Stoicism becomes less like a philosophy and more like a reflex. When something goes wrong, you do not ask, why me? You ask what is required now. When something goes right, you do not cling, you prepare. The final integration is this. You no longer identify as the one who is rebuilding. You identify as the one who keeps building. There is no finish line. There is only maintenance of character. And maintenance is humble work. It is the daily choosing of clarity over chaos, of depth over display, of responsibility over relief. It is not glamorous, it is effective. Look back at who you were when you started, the hesitation, the noise, the hidden fear that you might be incapable of lasting change. You proved that voice wrong by refusing to argue with it. You simply outworked it. Now your task is to guard what you have built. You do that by staying small in your habits even as your life expands. You do that by returning to first principles whenever confusion creeps in. You do that by remembering that the rebuild succeeded because you chose solitude over stimulation. There will be seasons when you feel restless again. That is not regression. That is the signal that another layer is ready to be shed. Growth is not linear, it is cyclical. You will outgrow even this version of yourself. When that happens, you will not panic. You will recognize the pattern. You will step back into silence. You will ask better questions. You will begin again, not from scratch, but from strength. This is the Stoic way, not to dominate the world, but to govern yourself so completely that the world loses its power to throw you off center. If this journey has sharpened something inside you, if it has helped you see your own potential with new seriousness, then take a second and, like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder and subscribe to the channel Stoic Origin so you do not walk the next chapter alone. You came here to destroy the old you. You are leaving as the architect of the next one. And that work, the quiet work of becoming, never truly ends. It simply gets clearer, steadier, and more yours with every disciplined breath you take.